So our graduation address today will be given by Jason Holley, and it will be on the Odyssey of Therapy, great title. Jason is a graduate of Southwestern College, and prior to that, he was a graduate of Princeton. So he came to Southwestern from Princeton, which we're very happy about. He is a brilliant astrologer, as many of you know, and he is also a dearly beloved faculty member. Welcome, Jason Holley.
And watching it, this has wheels. It's like sort of like one of those dreams of what's going to happen to you in a speech. Kind of a long fall. I'm really honored to be able to speak to all of you today, to you, the graduates, and also to all of you who've come, who love and support them. I just can't really think of a bigger honor than to be able to do that with you. As Catherine said, I'm a graduate of the college, and I've also been able to teach and supervise a lot of those students who are graduating today and who've gone through our program. And I think of going through Southwestern as an adventure. You might even say kind of a trip. You might say a good or a bad trip. You might wonder if you bought the right stuff, but in any case, an adventure. And therapy is also an adventure. And that's why, to talk with you today, I've just turned to the Odyssey, which is an ancient Greek story, about 3,000 years old, to share some reflections about our adventures as students and as therapists. The Odyssey was Homer's story about the long journey home that Odysseus took, and with his men at the end of the Trojan War, a journey by sea. The trip back was supposed to take about 3 or 4 weeks, and it ended up taking 10 years. So I think you see the similarity with therapy. You're counting on it, right? So let's just start with who Odysseus was. Even if you're not especially familiar with myth, you've heard some things about him. He's the guy who had the idea of creating the Trojan horse. That's the giant wooden horse that a few of the Greek soldiers hid inside, and they offered it as a gift to the Trojans. And then when the Trojans brought it behind the city's walls, the soldiers hiding inside came out and turned the tide of the war. So Odysseus, like any good therapist, had his ways of slipping past defenses. You've probably also heard about his adventures with the Sirens, with the Scylla and the Charybdis, the monster in the vortex that he had to sail his way through so carefully, and lots of others. And so it's easy to imagine him as just another Greek hero, full of courage and inspired by the gods to all sorts of daring-do. But on a closer look, Odysseus is really a very different kind of hero, and the story that bears his name is not one of continuous great feats, but quite the opposite. It's the story of someone who's stranded at sea, pining constantly for home, having already been in a war for 10 years, and now cursed to remain far adrift from home for 10 more years. Nearly every exploit and every adventure in the Odyssey begins in the same way. Things are looking good, seems like we're getting close to home, but then the ship is tossed and turned, crashed into some strange island, if it survives at all. Odysseus and his crew seek refuge. They're trapped, they're ensnared, or they're helped. They manage to escape, and then they set out for the next adventure in hope of a way home. By now you can see that the Odyssey is not just the story of Odysseus. It's our story too. It's a story for humanity. A story of the journey home to oneself, the process of returning to one's truest self, one's true home. It's a journey that involves encountering all sorts of strange, wonderful, and terrifying creatures who live on islands scattered in the sea of the unconscious. It involves delays, repetitions, shape-shifting, sorrow, sorcery, and magic. It requires engaging all of one's resources and skills, and also of regularly calling upon the aid of the gods. To me, it's all of these things that make it the story of psychotherapy. Because like Odysseus, most of our clients come to us from one kind of war zone or another. And like Odysseus, they are also on their way home. Home to themselves, to their hearts, and to their souls. One of the things that most stands out about this story to me is that it is a story of being lost. lost at sea. The sea is a powerful image of the unconscious, of the realm of affect, imagination, sensation. That which is not contained in words and concrete terms, but which we all carry within us, or we could say, which carries all of us. These are waters we may sail upon, swim within, and sometimes drown under. And the story seems to say that if you want to journey home, you must come to terms with the sea and all the mystery, danger, and possibility that it contains. More specifically, you must become lost at sea. Basically, the Odyssey is a series of shipwrecks. Over and over again, Odysseus and his crew end up somewhere they've never been, dealing with things they've never, and no one has ever, seen. Again, sound like therapy? I think getting lost is something we excel at here in Southwestern. You can take that anywhere you want. By now, you graduates all know that it's not true that our program is about doing your own work so that you're clear enough and issue-free enough to be able to help others. If you think that's what you did, if you think you became clear and issue-free, I would just invite you to ask your loved ones. Or any of your fellow graduates. I think they'll be able to clear that up for you. And thank goodness that's not what happened. Because it's not resolution that we need in order to be good therapists. It's practice. Practice walking in the dark. Practice tolerating confusion. Practice messing up again and again and again. Practice encountering our limits. Our clients don't need our issues to be resolved. They need to know that we can be relied upon when things are unresolved. They don't need us to figure them out. They need to know that we can handle having no clue who they are. And they don't need us to make them feel better. They need to know that we can tolerate being there even when they don't. This is something that you graduates have done. You have surrendered yourself to the sea here at Southwestern again and again. You have brought story after story, image after image into classes, not knowing where things might go. You have had monsters, gods, goddesses. Often you have done this in environments that may not have felt comfortable, yet still you came. Again and again you have sought refuge, and again you have provided it to one another. With each new adventure, you trusted the process enough to keep hoisting the sails for the next leg. And this Odyssey of Southwestern will prepare you for the Odyssey of work as a therapist. There are, of course, many ways to do good therapy, and I support you in any which suit you. Take any boat, learn well how to navigate it. Take the compass and the maps and study them, use them. But once you've set sail, and I don't mean this in a rude way, get lost. And by get lost, I mean make yourself available to travel to places you don't know, relationally, emotionally, somatically, to places yet unmapped. It's when we're lost that these things get interesting, and the uniqueness of each individual shines through. Once we're off the map, we find ourselves crashing onto unknown islands and meeting strange mythical creatures there. The sorceress, Circe, who reveals our animalistic nature. The lotus eaters, who offer us a lifelong numbness and amnesia. The cyclops part of us, who can only see in one direction. The sirens, who we must carefully engage to partake of the wisdom and avoid the trap. In therapy, we meet all these characters and more. We crash upon their islands, beg them for refuge, and learn from them. Sometimes we also become them for our clients, monsters, gods, mothers, and they too for us. And with each adventure, we and our clients learn our way around, develop a bit more wisdom. We talk about informed consent in this field, but I believe that when we're doing our best work, we have no idea what we're doing or where we'll end up being. It takes great courage and fortitude of soul to willingly subject oneself to such things. It also takes real skill. Odysseus was not Gilligan from Gilligan's Island. He was the well-educated son of a Greek king, precisely the kind of person you'd want beside you if you were lost at sea. He had been placed in many seemingly unworkable binds before, and so have you. He had a relatively sure hand, and he had some psychic heft, and so do you. He knew how to call upon the people and the gods who help in the work, and so do you. But what will take real courage, and what I hope we have succeeded in helping you to embrace, is this. Get lost with your clients. We feel throughout the Odyssey the growing wisdom and depth of Odysseus across his endless shipwrecks. For anyone who is seeking to find themselves, the Odyssey offers a clear message. To be found, you must first be lost. The other story I want to share with you that's sort of less ballyhooed from the Odyssey is about Penelope. Penelope is the wife of Odysseus. When Odysseus goes to Troy for the war, Penelope stays behind at the palace in Ithaca. When the 10-year war finally ends, she waits eagerly for him to return, but he doesn't. All the other warriors make it back in a few weeks, but no Odysseus. Months pass, years, and rumors begin to spread that he and his crew have died at sea. The kings and the princes of other lands see an opportunity to take control of Ithaca for themselves, to take over Odysseus' kingdom. They start to come calling for Penelope's hand in marriage. But year after year, she refuses their advances. She keeps the hope that Odysseus will return. As the years goes on, the suitors become more impatient and demanding. They begin to occupy the palace, and they constantly push her to choose one of them. After waiting for 7 years, and that's 17 years adding the war, it begins to seem that the suitors might finally force the issue. Penelope's hope is also starting to flag. It's at this point, when her hope is almost gone, that Penelope receives a visitation from Athena, goddess of wisdom, disguised as one of her serving women, for the gods always come disguised as humans. Athena tells her that Odysseus is still alive and on his way home, and she shares a plan for Penelope to keep the suitors at bay a few years more, while Odysseus finds his way home. The day after Athena's visit, Penelope announces to the kingdom that she will at last choose one of the suitors to wed. She tells them she'll do it just as soon as she finally finishes a weaving project, a funeral shroud for her aging and almost collapsed father-in-law. And so every day, for those last few years, Penelope is hard at work on the shroud. Anytime the suitors look up, they see her carefully weaving it together, skillfully, dexterously sending the shuttle across the threads. All her waking hours seem to be spent at work on the shroud. But what the suitors don't see is that every night, when no one is around, she equally carefully, equally dexterously, undoes all the weaving she had done that day. So every morning she starts afresh, and every evening she takes it all apart again. For 3 years, Penelope keeps this deception going. You really have to wonder about these suitors and how bright they were. Not to mention the guys who let the horse in. I mean, it's rough, you want to get the deep meaning of this, but every now and then I just sort of like, what were you thinking? That happens in therapy too. But for 3 years she kept it going, utterly uncertain of her husband's fate, with only dreamlike visitations from the goddess to encourage her. She ravels and unravels, over and over again. All the while, we the readers know that Odysseus is undertaking his unimaginable journeys across the seas. But she doesn't know. Her doubt is profound. But she still continues her tying and untying, weaving and unweaving, keeping the throne open, holding a space, as we say at Southwestern, for Odysseus to return. To me, this part of the story is also incredibly like therapy. Our clients come in under certain precepts, what we might call treatment goals. I would. Often it is, except in my clinical notes. Often it is to deal with one suitor or another, these treatment goals. One substitute or another that tempts us to give up on our own soul's return. Keep this addiction from consuming me. Make these unhelpful desires go away. Or to be very literal, help me stop falling for all these narcissistic men. Our clients tell their stories, or share their beliefs, or reveal their defenses, and gently, skillfully, we and they ravel and unravel, knit and unknit these. Sometimes there are particularly tight knots that we run into together. Some stories are harder to untangle than others. But our hands are usually skillful enough to handle that. And in the story, you can hear that it's pretty much taken for granted that Penelope knows what she's doing with a loom. When I think of therapists who come to me for consultation, they usually aren't in need of learning how to do the work better or learn a better weaving technique, if you will. There are always new skills and techniques to learn. But what I find most ails the folks I work with, it's the same as Penelope: doubt. We frequently doubt ourselves in our work. How many times have I thought or heard from a supervisee, is anything really happening here? Is this helping at all? Am I actually accomplishing anything? All this storytelling, image making, it seems not to be leading anywhere. It often seems that just when you think it's done, it all gets unwound again by the next session. The patterns keep getting repeated, the stories keep playing out, and it's as if nothing is changing. If we're lucky during this, our clients might see a dream and tell it to us, which will give us some hope. Or perhaps we will see something in an image or hear something in a story that seems to point to change happening. Like the visitations of Athena to Penelope, these can often give us and our clients the faith to keep going. But very often, these signs are hard to see. We may feel like giving up. Why keep going? What is the point of all this raveling and unraveling? Like Penelope with Odysseus, we will feel uncertain whether all of this knitting and unknitting has any real purpose. We will doubt if our efforts truly serve the soul who sits across from us, especially if we are not seeing whatever idea we have in our head about what we're supposed to be seeing. And yet the story reminds us that even when it seems like nothing is happening, our patient, skillful, conscious, raveling and unraveling, raveling and unraveling, raveling and unraveling, is also what creates the space and the possibility for a great adventure and for the appearance of the soul. Because somewhere out on the wild seas of the unconscious, somewhere in unseen and fantastic realms, incredible things are already underway, and a homecoming is soon to occur. And all our knitting and unknitting, raveling and unraveling, will have made a difference in the world. As we begin to recognize across from us the soul of our own client, their deepest, truest self, take their rightful seat at the throne of their own lives, as Odysseus takes his. There are so many things happening in the manifold realms of soul, while we do our patient raveling and unraveling, while the seasons pass one to the next. Here is Rilke, translated by Robert Blythe, reminding us that we are never alone in this work, that there is a realm which makes sense of everything. Apropos of our season, it's called autumn. The leaves are falling, falling as if from far up, as if orchards were dying high in space. Each leaf falls as if it were motioning, no. And tonight, the heavy earth is falling, away from all other stars in the loneliness. We are all falling. This hand here is falling. And look at the other one. It's in them all. And yet, there is someone whose hands infinitely calm, holding up all this falling. So graduates, in the name of that someone, psyche, self, God, soul, I offer this blessing to you. May you become lost. May your journeys be long. May you become shipwrecked again and again. May you meet strange and wonderful creatures in the inner worlds of yourself and your clients. May you throw yourself upon the mercies of the gods in the other realms. May you offer refuge to those parts of yourself and others who have been driven from their homes. May you be divinely guided. May you ravel and unravel the many marvelous tapestries of the whole human experience. And most of all, may you know that in the waiting and the moments when all you seem to be doing is keeping the suitors at bay, you are also engaged in a journey home, your clients and your own, one that has inspired the human race for at least 3,000 years. This work we do is nothing less than an odyssey. And we say to you, you are ready.